The member for Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Social Services. Will the minister update the House on how the government is ensuring hard-working Australian families will be supported with better, more affordable childcare? Are there any alternative approaches that would increase cost of living pressures?
The Minister for Social Services.
Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for her question and her great interest in this area. And as was noted slightly earlier, 230,000 Australians will be able to get more involved for the first time in the workforce because of these childcare reforms. 1 million Australians stand to benefit because they access childcare to try and make better lives for themselves as they work very hard in our economy. And all of this, Mr Speaker, is being achieved by the government being able to save close to $1.4 billion through the very simple mechanism of a pause on family tax benefit for 2 years. Now, that's a savings measure that Senator Xenophon in the debate described as a reasonable approach which ensures there are no reductions in payments to families while supporting a substantial investment in better childcare assistance, which we think is a quite reasonable description. And I'm asked, of course, Mr Speaker, if there are any alternative approaches. And the alternative approach of members opposite is simply to leave 1 million families without simpler and more affordable childcare. And why? Why would they deny those 1 million families simpler and more affordable childcare? Because Labor say a 2-year pause on family tax benefits is a sledgehammer blow or alternatively a cruel attack. And given those descriptions, Mr Speaker, it's an interesting exercise to see how Labor described very similar savings to the family tax benefit system that they engaged in through pauses in FTB when they were in government. And would you believe it, Mr Speaker, there are some descriptions of similar FTB savings from Labor, and they appear in a press release entitled Reform of Family Payments, a joint release, the member for Lilley and the member for Jagga. They explain, Mr Speaker, yes, they explain in that press release, Mr Speaker, they explain that the Australian spending on family payments is very generous by international standards, with which we would tend to agree. They then go on to say that they have some measures which will, quote, limit growth of family payments and save $1.4 billion over the forward estimates, almost exactly the same amount that we're also saving. They then go on to say Australia's spending on family payments is generous. The rate of growth of family tax benefits will be slightly reduced to ensure effective incentives to work remain, and built into the transfer system, this also ensures sustainability of the system overall. So they engage in pauses on family tax benefits, and that is a sustainability measure. Indeed, it's built into the system to keep work incentives. We do a very similar thing. We use the money to pay for childcare, and that's a sledgehammer blow. So what is the definition of a fair and reasonable pause on family tax benefits? That's the one that they do. And what's the definition of the unfair one? The one that they don't?
The Minister's time has concluded. The member for